welcome back to the Pokemon Legends Arceus review. This is part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, it's right there or in the description. And let's get to it. Because running around and catching Pokemon is the main gimmick of this game, it's a lot easier to just run around and, well, do exactly that. You can just throw Pokeballs and catch Pokemon without entering a battle with them, as long as they don't just poof, as we'll see later. One of the resources you can collect by throwing your Pokemon at it is a berry tree. Like in previous Pokemon games, berries all have different curing effects for your Pokemon. But in this game, you can also throw the berries and attract Pokemon, so you can sneak up on them and either throw a Pokeball for a high chance to catch them, or your Pokemon itself for an advantage in battle. Oh my god, what is going on over there? Unlike the previous Pokemon games, Legends Arceus is the first Pokemon game to have its own proper day-night cycle. In previous Pokemon games, the time of day in-game was determined by the time in real life, since it used the clock on your DS, your 3DS, and your Switch for those unfortunate enough to have played the Let's Go games and or Sword and Shield. If you played the game during the day, it was daytime. If you played the game at night, it was nighttime. Simple. Unfortunately, that came with the issue of needing to wait until the right time in real life if there was anything specific you wanted to do, since certain events in Pokemon were only available at night, or sometimes at sunrise/sunset. But now, in Legends Arceus, there's a proper natural day-night cycle that lasts about 24 minutes per day. Basically, a minute in real life is an hour in-game. This is a great change from the previous games that has long since been overdue. I mean, apparently if you tried to cheat and change the time on your console in previous games, it would lock you out of certain events until a full 24 hours had passed. Meaning the only real benefit you'd get from trying to get around this annoying system is that you could catch Pokemon that appeared at nighttime. Which is just stupid, but that's a conversation for another day. Right now, it's nighttime, so I went on to catch a bunch of Drifloon because of the Pokedex and also because I wanted one. Lots of Pokemon disappear at night, as just mentioned in previous games, in exchange for others, but there's still a few that stick around at night. It's just that the ones that are still around, you can actually see them sleeping. Sometimes. Weasel, buddy, that looks really uncomfortable. Here, let me help you out. I only need to zap you for the Pokedex, but at least your back won't be in pain anymore. Just everything else. I'm really bad at comedy. I also caught a Mime Jr. It was the only one I could find, so I'm assuming it's rare. I guess it's good that I got it while I could find one. I decided to wander over on the river nearby to go for a swim. Maybe you can find water-type Pokemon in here. Are you fucking serious? My character is 15 and they don't know how to swim? They were literally just doing it. What made them stop? And I come back with damage taken? What is going on here? Is this their way of preventing you from going to places you shouldn't be able to? I'm not kidding when I say a simple invisible wall here would have made more sense. Well, I tried to cross the bridge by the river instead, but the guy there says I can't go until I get my first Galaxy Star badge. So I went off to do more exploring, resource collecting, Pokemon catching. Why am I struggling to simply walk through ankle-height water? Am I allergic to it or something? That's a pretty big Snorlax with the fire of God in his eyes. I think I'll just avoid him for now. You know how earlier I mentioned that being able to increase your stamina with a change of clothes would be neat? Well, I'm really wishing I had that right about now. Because once you start running around this place, it gets slow and tiring pretty quick. You don't have enough stamina to justify all the running around you do. Oh god, stay back! Okay, well this is clearly a much higher level area than I am, so I should probably head back. I discovered a new black rock on the way. It looks just like the orange, copper colored looking ones you use for Pokeballs, so clearly this is for something later. Speaking of which, does this not look hideously out of place? It looks like someone tore the whole chunk out of the ground, rock and all still attached, and then dumped it on the side of this grassy hill. Speaking of grassy hills, there's a lot here to run around and explore, but there's not much to actually find. Like, there's not even any Pokemon up here? Why is this a thing? Well, once I head back to Laventon, he notes down the Pokemon we caught, gives us our pay for them, shows us the updated Pokedex with the new Pokemon discovered, caught, and research task completed, and we're given points to earn our first Galaxy Star badge. Once we head inside, we show our Pokedex and it prompts us to look at it again. I don't know why, we literally just looked at it 50 seconds ago, and I was immediately kicked back to the village without a choice, so it's not like anything new could have gotten in there between now and then. And voila! We now have our first badge. We can now use Heavy Balls, interesting name. We get the crafting recipe for them, and revives, which is neat. No longer will we have to run back to the professor and rest if we have any Pokemon that have fainted. Not that it really mattered, it only took me like 20 minutes or so to go from the end of the tutorial to here, but hey, whatever, it's cool. Silene gives us a compliment for our skill despite being new. I'm just gonna let her silent mouth continue flapping here for a while. And she sends us off, stating that earning more badges will earn us better Pokeballs and rewards. Okay. We sit down and have a meal with Ray and Levinton again. Ray asks us about a side quest, which I'll come back to later. Ray then tells us about a side quest he has to do, then immediately says that we, the player, would probably be better at it because he needs to get better at battling. You've only seen me do it once, or twice. Point is, he's probably had a Pokemon for a lot longer than we've even been here. I don't get it. Levinton mentions a group called the Diamond Clan, and I'm immediately reminded of Pokemon Diamond, so it's safe to assume there's probably going to be a Pearl Clan as well. The next day rolls around, and Ray asks us to meet him at the training grounds. This isn't important or anything, it's just something I noticed while playing. Like, why do they even do that if they're out of bounds in a place I'll never reach? So we seem to sprint up the first step before suddenly slowing down to a snail's pace for the rest. Again, this stuff isn't exactly important, but I just want to know why. Why is it like this? Once we meet up with Ray, we get another completely worthless prompt to answer him with. What? Once we meet up with Ray, we get another completely worthless prompt to answer him with, and he tells us about how he doesn't understand how people can battle Pokemon, despite having one for, again, a lot longer than we've probably even been here. We get another prompt questioning if he has a Pokemon, even though in the previous scene, he says he needs to get better at battling. Yeah, no shit he has a Pokemon. Ignoring the fact that these prompts are stupid, wouldn't us asking if he has a partner make more sense in the scene where he literally mentions he needs to get better at battling? What did my character think he meant by that? That he physically fights the Pokemon himself? Well, he shows us his partner that spawns out of nowhere, and of course it's a Pikachu. I'm gonna go on another small tangent, but I swear, every new Pokemon game these days feels like a speedrun on how quickly they'll show us this little bastard. X and Y was in like the first 10 minutes from what I recall. Though I'm pretty sure the reason why they did that was so that they could show off that Pikachu's voice is no longer his regular cry, but rather how he sounds in the anime. Now, as we can see, they've probably updated his cry to be how it used to sound before that. As you know, Pokemon X and Y updated all the cries to sound more modern. We're only getting Pikachu's updated modern cry now. Several games, literally a whole decade, pretty much, since all the other cries got updated. Wait, why do you say bigger? Is Pikachu racist? Wait, I'm sorry, did you mean Pika? Game Freak, this is by far the easiest and most obvious Pokemon to onomatopoeia. It's the mascot of your franchise, and you still somehow messed that up? Well, Ray's Pikachu turns and throws him another slow for acting like a coward. I guess that gave him the motivation he needed because he immediately decides to battle us after that. Where he throws a Pokeball to send out Pikachu, even though Pikachu was already out. I'm gonna bring this back up later, just you wait. What ensues is probably the most insulting battle I've ever witnessed. So to quickly explain, by now you'll probably have unlocked a feature called Strong and Agile Style. If your Pokemon has leveled up enough, they will naturally master a move they have, unlocking these options. In this game, you can potentially do 2 moves in a row before your opponent gets a chance to have their turn. Choosing Agile Style will have your Pokemon do less damage with whatever attack they're using, but there's a higher chance that you can have a second turn in a row. If your opponent has 2 turns in a row already lined up, then Agile Style will potentially reduce it back down to 1, making things more fair again. Strong Style is the opposite, that being it does more damage but could reduce the amount of turns you have, potentially increasing the amount of turns your opponent gets, of course. You can actually see the upcoming turns by pressing Y in battle. So what actually happened in this battle? Well, I did one Agile Style quick attack, which allowed me to have another turn interrupted. Okay, simple enough. So I did another Agile Style quick attack, and I was allowed to go again uninterrupted? Which means I could attack once more to finish him off. I got hit once at the start, and then steamrolled him with 3 turns in a row. Whoa, you seem so in sync with your Pokemon. No, that was bullshit! That was so unfair. Not that I'm complaining. If I can win faster and easier, then that's fine, but now I just feel bad for you, Ray. You came to me saying you wanted to get better at battling, and I essentially gave you the middle finger. Well, Ray's Pikachu doesn't seem all that impressed by his trainer, but to be fair, he's probably just annoyed that I cheated the system so hard. Ray says his Pikachu has a tendency to attack. I'm not sure what he means by that, but since he then says that because of this, his Pikachu tends to stay in his ball, I'm going to take this as the first time an NPC has a Pokemon that doesn't listen to them because they don't have enough badges. I'm surprised there's never been more stuff like this, or at least to my knowledge there hasn't. But I think it's a neat detail and actually adds to Ray's whole I need to get better at battling thing he's got going on. He wants to get better so his Pikachu will respect him and actually listen to him. It's neat and understandable. Though if he, as an NPC, followed the same rules as the player, then all he'd have to do is catch a lower level Pokemon. Oh wait, but he sucks at that. Okay, never mind. For those who don't know, basically in Pokemon, if you don't have enough badges, whatever the equivalent is across each game, whether it's the gym badges or in this game the Galaxy Star badges, your Pokemon will not listen to you if they get too high of a level. It's basically this game's version of a level cap, which I've never really understood. If they don't want us to get over-leveled, then they should probably just put a hard cap, making it so that our Pokemon literally cannot go any higher than whatever level the maximum level at the time is. Ray also mentions that Pokemon have different types. If you're a fan of Pokemon, then you'd already know this. And we're immediately given a cheat sheet on all Pokemon types with their strengths and weaknesses. Okay, well, there goes the process of learning and figuring it out on your own. I remember most, if not every Pokemon game ever has a character tell you the whole Fire type is weak to Water type, Water type is weak to Grass type is weak to Fire type. You know, that kind of thing. So you can quickly learn and figure out that some Pokemon types are stronger and weaker against others. And then you can go on and figure out which other typings do what as you play through the game. You know, learn as you play. Now just give them a chart so they don't have to try. Fuck it, make these games easier than they already are. Oh look, they actually put the thing I just said on there. Well, there's not really much point when I can just look at the graph and see for myself. The game will have these symbols in battle on your moves as well, instead of just letting the player figure it out. I hate this. Anyway, after that we meet someone named Zissou, who looks and moves like a robot. Captain Zissou is a master of an ancient martial art at where you guide your Pokemon in battle. Isn't that just called using your voice and telling your Pokemon what to do? Oh right, this is where we learn about the strong and agile style thing I just talked about. In truly favorable conditions, I might even get 2 moves out before the opponent can act. Try 3, Captain Zissou. Oh my god, your face is terrifying. The way her mouth just stretches open like that, Jesus Christ. Every time I look at this, I'm just expecting her face to fall off and reveal a robot underneath. Well, after that exchange, Ray says he's going to meet someone named Maya of the Diamond Clan. I was going to check something in the Galaxy Hall, but my game crashed upon entering, and by the time I reloaded back in, I forgot why I was going there in the first place. So back off to the Obsidian Fields I went. Volo comes back, and he attempts to scare us with a sound effect from behind, because remember this game has no voice acting, and teach us about something I'd already figured out at this point. If you hit a Pokemon from behind, with a Pokeball or your Pokemon, you'll catch them by surprise and get an advantage over them, whether it be an increased chance of catching them, which pairs well with the berries I mentioned earlier, or simply getting a turn over them in battle. Again, this is something that the player can figure out on their own, you know? You hit a Pokemon in the back of the head with a Pokeball, it has the intense sound effect. It's like, it's pretty obvious what that means. Oh, yep, cool, okay, just another Pokemon that keeps its guard up and that gets dragged to the Shadow Realm before I can do anything. We return to the guy on the river bridge who lets us pass after seeing we have our first badge, and we meet up with Ray, who's talking to Maya of the Diamond Clan. She introduces herself as a warden of the Diamond Clan, which I assume means she's important. For some reason her low-res textured pants have a Pokemon and flowers on it, like it's a modern piece of clothing yanked into the past. What is this? She asks us if we can lead our Pokemon in battle, which of course we say yes to, since I also imagine if you say no, you'll be forced to go along anyways. You may have noticed Maya has a Munchlax next to her. She says they were raised together like siblings, which is cute. She says he battles at her side by choice without needing any silly little balls like we use. Well, that's just rude. But at the same time, that's initially how I thought we'd catch and train Pokemon in this game back when it was announced. And by catch, I mean technically not catching them. I mean, this game takes place far in the past, so obviously Pokeballs wouldn't exist, or at least I thought that would be obvious. Maybe instead we'd use berries to attract and bond with Pokemon somehow. Our Pokemon would be at our side at all times, because that just makes sense for the time period. But no, apparently that's unique to Mai and some other characters. Well, we battled Mai and, whoa, hang on. She sent out Munchlax without throwing a Pokeball, because Munchlax was already out. Did Mai just do what, for some reason, Ray did not? Well, we battled Mai, and because I'm an idiot, I sent out Cyndaquil, who wasn't even at full health because I battled a couple wild Pokemon before getting here, and he's instantly knocked out by Rollout. Okay, another small tangent. I was surprised by this, because from what I recall, Munchlax doesn't learn Rollout until he's a much higher level. Okay, so I looked it up. In some other games of this generation, Pokemon Legends Arceus, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and Pokemon Sword and Shield are all part of the same generation. In the other games, he just doesn't learn Rollout. They just removed that move. But apparently in this game, he learns it at level 1 when it's normally much higher than that. I don't know how all of this could have come to be if all these games are part of the same generation and it's different, but for some reason Legends Arceus is the only game where Munchlax learns Rollout in this generation and at this level. For some reason. Which is weird, because Legends Arceus is also the game with the least amount of moves. Like, they gave Munchlax new moves that he's never had, and removed several old ones while also messing with the levels you learn said moves, which I'll come back to later. Also, the next game's Pokemon Scarlet and Violet remove Rollout again. What? I got off topic for a minute there. What was I talking about? Oh right, Mai. Well, we beat her in battle, because I've got 6 Pokemon and she only has 1. Honestly, I'm surprised they haven't put in some kind of hard cap early in-game for how much Pokemon you can have, since it would make it more fair on the NPCs, since you're only early in your Pokemon career. I mean, what do you mean you already have so much more Pokemon than everyone else? Maybe you start off with 3 slots in your party and unlock more with each badge or 2? Oh, but that would actually introduce some difficulty to this game, so yeah, that's obviously not happening. After defeating Mai, she says we aren't one of the usual Galaxy buffoons, which immediately makes me like her, because yeah, the Galaxy team so far has been an absolute joke. She says good job to Munchlax on the battle, which is a cute detail, and considering he actually knocked out a couple of my Pokemon, yeah, he's already doing better than the last 2 I battled. You make all kinds of things with your crafting, don't you? Okay, I get this as the game's way of saying what you're about to receive you can use to make stuff, but that wording is just really weird. I'm probably overthinking it, but it makes it sound like she doesn't know the concept of creating things, which obviously isn't true since that's a basic human concept. I don't know, it just sounds funny. Like, we defeated her in a Pokemon battle and she just reverted to caveman brain. Oh, you make all kinds of things with your crafting, as you call it, don't you? Like, what? Anyways, she gives us Vivichokes, which we can use to make revives, so that's neat. She also heals our Pokemon, and with all of that together, she's already probably the coolest character in the game. She lets us know where she wants our help, since that's why we came here in the first place, and our phone starts beeping. I seriously hate this Pog face, what in the fuck? Weirdly enough, it points us right to where Mai wants our help, which seems to imply Arceus is telling us that we should indeed go and do this. One last thing, Mai tells us about the almighty Sinnoh, which of course immediately reminds you of the Diamond and Pearl games. In those games, the region was called the Sinnoh region, so we can probably assume what they're talking about is one of the legendary Pokemon. I say one of because Mai goes on to explain that the almighty Sinnoh steers all time. If you're familiar with Pokemon, then it's clear she's talking about Dialga, which means the inevitable Pearl clan must believe in Palkia. Though I'm not sure what they'd call him, unless this is a situation where both believe in a different god with the same name, believing that they're the one who created everything. Oh my god. The absolute rabbit hole this could go down. The implications of 2 groups of people in conflict over which of their gods is real or not. Wow, Pokemon, I'll admit you actually gave me quite the surprise there. Anyway, one thing I've neglected to mention in this game, which I should probably bring up now considering what I've just discussed. The region isn't called the Sinnoh region anymore. Instead, it seems in the past they called the region Hisui instead. I don't know why they would have changed this. If I were to take a guess, it's because Game Freak wants the games to be more ancient Japanese style, which makes sense, considering Sinnoh is one of the few regions that are based on real locations of Japan, along with things like the drum sound effect, the style of clothing, and the attempt at making the art style seem like traditional Japanese woodblock paintings. I of course say attempt because look at this fucking game. But as for an in-universe reason as to why this was done, I could not for the life of me figure out why or how that would even work. Okay, I looked this up as well for the sake of this point, and apparently Kamado declares this change to reflect the name of the true god Pokemon watching over the region. I may have to come back to this later, but to end this off, I don't even know how that works because Arceus at the start of the game says that humans call him Arceus. Or did this come later after the game's events? Because wouldn't my character tell these people that the name of the god Pokemon they're worshipping is actually Arceus? Or does my character just not care? Like, genuinely, what is this writing? Okay, I got super off topic there again, and it's only over a few lines of dialogue. Either I'm thinking about this too hard, or I'm simply thinking about it more than Game Freak did. Yeah, okay, I'll come back to this nonsense later. I've got more to speak on this, but I'd rather not linger on it for too long as of now. I've already been yapping for way longer than I probably should. Mai wants our high... My wants our high. What the hell? My wants our help up in Deer Track Heights, where there's an alpha Pokemon we have to take care of. To explain alpha Pokemon, I have to explain another feature in this game. Pokemon come in different sizes now. It's a neat detail that shows they're not just the same copied and pasted models over and over again, even if it tends to feel that way when you run by a bunch and just pelt them with Pokeballs. Unfortunately, it doesn't serve any real purpose except to add more jobs to the research tasks of the Pokedex. Those of course being, catch this many small/large Pokemon. Same goes for Pokemon weight. This is another feature that, well, adds in Pokemon weights. They vary as well, as you can probably imagine, but you can't tell a light to a heavy Pokemon until you catch it. Meaning if you have a research task telling you to catch light or heavy Pokemon, you don't really have a choice but to just catch Pokemon like you normally would and hope you get lucky. This is where Alpha Pokemon come in. Alpha Pokemon are Pokemon that are automatically the largest size and weight of their respective species. They're the ones you see roaming the world with the red glowing eyes. They're super aggressive and many levels higher than the other Pokemon of their kind in the area. So mine wants us to go take care of one that's apparently causing trouble, but first let's go do some more exploring and catch some Pokemon. Okay, so I throw a Pokeball at the Starly, but then it escapes. No biggie. I catch it off guard with a strike from behind, and it escapes again. Alright, this one's being a little stubborn, so instead I catch it off guard from behind with my Pokemon instead. It's stunned being caught unaware, so I hit it with a Thunder Shock that apparently will give the Starly an extra move. It gets one move cancelled out because it's too stunned, then it keeps its guard up, then it just escapes. Yeah, all that just for it to vanish into nothing regardless. I'm fucking speechless and quite frankly insulted. It seems that despite a Pokemon holding its guard, and a Pokemon escaping being shown in two different messages, it's treated as one move. And it happens a lot in this game. Why did they do this? Why did they make it where Pokemon can just vanish into thin air if they are escaping a battle? Or even outside of battle, you know? I spoke about this earlier with the Eevee and the Wurmple, and that was frustrating then. It's still happening now. It is so unbelievably insulting and rips me right out of the experience that a Pokemon can just decide to be deleted from reality because it doesn't want to be caught is ridiculous. If it was still just running away out of battle, or even flew away out of range of my throwing abilities, this is where the Feather Ball that I'll mention later would be very useful. I could at least still have a chance to get it before properly losing it. Instead, the only thing I'm losing is my mind. The same thing happened here where I tried to catch a Kricketot. I was actually chasing it around and missing a couple times, and right when I finally threw the Pokeball that would hit it, an X suddenly appeared above its head, basically the game declaring, no, it's running away, you can't catch this anymore. Meaning when my Pokeball finally hit it, it just bounced off and the Kricketot vanished into thin air. Who the hell designed this? Well, I crafted my first Heavy Ball, along with some other things. The Heavy Ball is a ball described as too heavy to fly high or far. And boy, they are not kidding about that. Despite getting really close to this Geodude, this happens and I just have no words. It says it's highly effective if you hit an unsuspecting Pokemon, which, if you have to get that close, you might as well just smack the Pokemon with the Pokeball to catch it that way. Seriously, it's really frustrating. Like, I get it, it's really easy to just find resources and craft new Pokeballs in this game, but it's kind of annoying how I have to throw a few of them to understand the true range and capabilities before I can even use it. I ran into another Starly that kept its guard up twice in a row before running away, before I could even do anything, and it's at that point I decided I'm never catching Starly ever again from here onward. I discovered this tree which was shaking, and when collecting the apricorns from it, a Pokemon popped out. That's pretty neat. Of course, there's going to be Pokemon living in some trees, and if you disturb them, they might leap out and attack you. Unfortunately for this poor Burmy, which I actually wanted to catch, I accidentally killed it. Maybe next time. Okay, so I'm adding this mid-recording. I completely forgot about this. I just realized I don't think I ever said what it was you actually used to craft Pokeballs. I kind of just brushed past that. You use these things called apricorns, which you get from these trees, and Tumblestone being the rock outcrops that you go around finding. Okay, so at one point I ran into this Alpha Floatzel, which seemed so pissed off at me, it literally just exploded everything. I ran away because obviously I'm not fighting that thing, and he kept chasing me, even throwing some attacks at me. Thankfully I got far enough away that it stopped chasing me, so I could actually get back to what I was doing. Despite that, I actually ended up doing some more exploring, and along the way I came across some Geodudes, Zubats, found this blocked cave-looking thing that will obviously be important later. Oh, interesting. I see. Alright. lured a Magikarp over with a berry, and I caught it. I was very proud of that one. I discovered this Gyarados doing that. The way he changes frame rate along the way. I stumbled across a lost satchel. Apparently this game has a system called Lost and Found, where if a player loses items in their game, other people can find them in their own games. It's a neat system, but you would obviously need an internet connection for it to function. Or at least you'd think so, because there's a lot of satchels you can find even without the internet. I'm not sure if they're randomly generated or if there's simply a bunch that Game Freak pre-made and spread throughout the world. But either way, it's a neat thing. It's also kind of grim, actually, to think that there are just dead trainers out there or something that lost their items. Maybe I'm just overthinking this as well. You know what? Never mind. But when you find satchels for this Lost and Found system, you get You get merit points, which can be exchanged for stuff in Jubilife Village. I don't really know how to segue into this, and I'm not sure where else to put it, so I'm shoving it in here. This game has a brand new style of animation for when your Pokemon evolve. The way it's different to the usual standard animation is that the usual is that your Pokemon glows bright white, it changes shape, and then it reveals itself when the glow stops. This one, however, is quite different. Instead, you get what's basically a small tornado of what I assume is some kind of energy, and someone screaming in the background? I don't know, you tell me. And when the storm clears, the place brightens up and shows your newly evolved Pokemon. I think it's awesome, but there's just one problem I have with it. And believe it or not, it's not the fact that it takes place in a void like every other game, and it took until Scarlet and Violet for them to actually have the Pokemon evolve right then and there. No, I actually don't mind that in this game, believe it or not. What annoys me is actually something a lot smaller. The sound. The sound it makes when the evolution is complete. What is this? We have this cool epic animation with the music and the sound effects, and then what we get is do-do-do-do-do-do. What happened here? Where did the loud instruments from the other games go? That sounds so much better than what we got here. It just, I don't know, it almost feels like a tonal whiplash, but like, it also just simply doesn't fit. Well, anyways, my Starly and my Shinx evolved, plus my Wurmple evolving into Silcoon, which then evolved into a Beautifly. At this point, I decided I want to give a proper name to Pokemon that I know for sure I'm going to keep until the end of the game. I decided to go with a theme of chocolate. So I renamed my Cyndaquil to Kit Kat. I ended up going all the way around the island before making my way to where I'm actually needed, and even then I still went back to the professor to check in with all my stuff. I caught 20 Pokemon in one go. I must be destroying the veterans of the Galaxy team at this point, and I've only been here like, what, a few days? Returning to the village, I swapped out some members of my team to the ones I wanted, since there's a place by the entrance of the village that holds all the Pokemon catch. Basically, it acts like the PC system from every other Pokemon game. After that, I go to collect my second badge, since all the Pokemon and Pokedexing I did was more than enough for me to earn my second star. We get shown the Pokedex again, that we were literally just shown not a couple of minutes ago. Again, why is this a thing? And now we can use Feather Balls, which I briefly mentioned earlier, with our Pokemon being able to reach level 30 now. I don't think I explicitly mentioned it earlier, but the first badge you get means your Pokemon can reach level 20 before they start to disobey you, a system I somewhat mentioned earlier. Look, it's just really stupid. I mentioned the level cap system earlier with Ray. This is what I mean. You collect badges, and your Pokemon will actually listen to you. I don't know how Pokemon understand the concept of their trainer having badges, and if they don't have enough, then they won't listen to you. It's never explained anywhere. It's really stupid. And like I also said earlier, if they didn't want us leveling too much, just put in a hard cap so that it doesn't go any further up. Well now, we can craft Feather Balls, which basically just increases our throwing range, which is why I mentioned them earlier with Pokemon potentially flying away if they can do that, as well as being able to craft Super Potions. Finally, after all that, we make it back to where Mai was, and where she needs us. And it seems Laventon joined along, following behind us, since he's a research Pokemon person, professor thing. What am I going on about? Since he's a Pokemon professor, he of course wants to research Alpha Pokemon as well. Mai talks about a special Pokemon that apparently descended from the ancients, blessed by the almighty Sinnoh. I don't really have anything to say about that, it's just a bunch of word soup, it doesn't really mean anything. The Alpha Pokemon Mai was talking about comes out, and Mai gives us the task of taking it out. since it appears to be causing trouble. So we go up to battle it, and it seems since this is basically a tutorial for alpha Pokemon, even though alpha Pokemon are just bigger and stronger than normal Pokemon, it's actually a lower level than us. Wait, no, I didn't mean to. No, I want to catch it. Please don't die. Oh, you bastard. Fine, I'll find a different one. Well, my heals are Pokemon again, and the special Pokemon she was talking about appears from atop this large rock peak. It teleports down? Because Game Freak couldn't be bothered animating it jumping down? It has a jumping animation, as we'll see later. You could have just... Ugh, never mind. Whatever. Who cares? Well, it wanders up to us and looks around. He looks upon you with kindness. Huh? How can you tell? Oh, and then he just leaves. Did they randomly cut to my character because they didn't bother animating him turning around? Mai basically says you'll be able to ride him with the subtlety of a truck horn. Laventon mentions the ride Pokemon of Alola, which I guess means that system was already established hundreds of years in the past? It's not a bad thing or anything, it's just neat. It also implies that Laventon has been to a lot of different regions, which is also neat. The Deer Track Heights area then has a camp setup, meaning that we can fast travel and rest here now, instead of needing to run all the way over from the beginning of the area. After that, we return to the village for some more food from the Green Mustache Man. He mentions something called a Frenzied Cleaver, saying that it mauled some galaxy folks. Boy, that's grim. Laventon casually says that I can probably take care of it, which is a bit too positive thinking, even for him. Even Ray looks at him like, bro, what are you saying? Oh no. Oh, here we go. As mentioned, there is indeed a Pearl clan. The leaders of both clans are here, and they're arguing over which of their gods is real, as I predicted. Almighty Sinnoh, ruler of space. Look, honey, when we're talking about galaxies and time and stuff like that, this is what I imagine when the word space is brought up. But with the way these two are wording it, it makes it sound like this is what they mean when they're talking about space. Okay, so these two are bickering with playground-level insults before entering the Galaxy Hall to talk to Commodore. We'll have to follow along with them to know what their business here is, so in we go. Hello? Well folks, it looks like my game crashed again, so we'll just have to wait until next time on the Pokemon Legends Arceus review! Will the game's graphics continue melting like cheese? Will my totally Nintendo Switch continue malfunctioning? Will the objects not even that far away continue vanishing? And most importantly, will the wild Pokemon stop falling into the Shadow Realm? I've been doing everything I can to catch you, and like the distant objects, you still find your way out of existence!